Community Development Committee. We have in council, in the chamber, we have Councilman Williams, and we have Councilman Hudson, and we'll go ahead and get started with 2023-301. It's going to be presented by Nina Wilson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. The first item that we have is our Urgent Repair Program 2023 Procurement and Disbursement Policies and our Assistance Policy. These are policies that must be approved before we can actually enter into our agreement with North Carolina Housing Finance. This year, we actually only anticipated receiving $68,000, and that's what we received last year, but we actually received full funding for our application this year. And so we're going to be receiving $132,000. So just some quick highlights from our procurement policy. Basically, to the maximum extent practical, we will promote a fair, open, and competitive procurement process as required under North Carolina Housing Finance Agency's Urgency Repair Program. We seek to at least receive 3 quotes or bids. However, if the bids that we receive, if they are responsive and responsible bids, then we can accept fewer than 3 and we can move forward with the project. We reserve the right, of course, to reject any and all bids at any time during the procurement process. In the event that there is a true emergency, we reserve the right to waive normal procurement procedures in favor of more expedient methods, which may include seeking telephone quotes, faxed bids, bids via email, and the like. If the nature of a repair is such the repair can be made during the contractor's initial inspection or during the service diagnostic call, and if the repair does not exceed $1,000, we can authorize the contractor to move forward with that repair without a write-up or a bidding process. And for the disbursement policy, once all of the repair work has been inspected by either by the project manager, the homeowner, and possibly a code enforcement officer as appropriate, if everything passes, then we of course approve payment to the contractor. Under the assistance policy, this is something that we provide to all of the homeowners when they are applying for the program. And I'll just primarily go over eligibility. They have to reside, of course, within the city of High Point, and they must own and occupy the home that is in need of repair. They must have a household income that does not exceed 50% of the state median income for the household size. They must have 1 or more full-time household members with special needs, and that can be someone that is elderly, which is greater than 62 or greater, that is handicapped or disabled, a single-parent household with at least 1 dependent child, or a large family with 5 or more household members. And if there is a child below the age of 6 with lead hazards present, or a military veteran who was discharged or released under conditions other than dishonorable, those are considered special needs populations. And of course, as I said, the urgent repairs cannot be met through other state or federally funded housing assistance programs. And the amount of assistance that is available this year is $12,000 per project. And then this is basically provided to the homeowners as an unsecured, deferred, interest-free loan forgiven at a rate of $3,000 per year until the principal balance is reduced to 0. And so those are the policies that must be approved prior to us executing our contract with North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. So we are requesting that the committee recommend approval to council and that the appropriate city official be authorized to execute all necessary documents.
Thank you. Does any council member have any questions? Staff?
Motion to approve. Can I approve both of them? I have to approve them separate?
No, they can be approved together.
Motion to approve 301 and 302?
It's been properly moved and second that we approve both of them. By all signs of aye. Any opposed? All right, ayes have it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, and the next one, 2023-302. Consideration of the 2023 Urgent Repair Program post-approval documentation also will be presented by Nina Wilson. But before I go any further, of course, for the record, because I did not give my name, Councilman Tyrone Johnson and Councilman Cyril Jefferson is now in the chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. This item is the Urgent Repair 2023 Post-Approval Documentation Packet, or the PAD, as we call it, and we are seeking approval for submission to North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. Along what is actually included in this packet, we do have to provide documentation for the local matching funds. We typically match our URP program with $10,000 of general funds. And so we do have to have a local matching funds letter. We also have to submit the assistance policy and the procurement and disbursement policies that you just approved. Our service area requirements, of course, are the City of High Point. We're proposing to serve 11 homeowners with the $132,000. We also have to provide bonding, honesty, and fidelity insurance coverage, our fiscal year-end audit, acknowledgement of audit compliance reporting responsibilities, and of course, our W-9 tax ID and direct deposit forms. And then we also must certify that there have been no changes in the key personnel or their roles as identified in our application. And we also have to submit written requests indicating any changes in staff or those that are working with the program or that have roles that are key to the program. And we certify that the information, of course, that we have submitted is true and accurate. And the only document that you have that is actually included is the local matching funds letter, because the other documentation has private information like bank account numbers and other, information that we don't want to release for security reasons. And so that is the only document or supporting document that is included with this packet. So we are asking and seeking approval or recommendation to council to approve submission of the post-approval documentation packet, and that the appropriate city official be authorized to execute all documents.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
He's already made a motion to approve that one. I'll make a motion to approve it legitimately this time. Motion to approve 2023-302.
Second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved in a second that we approve it, and we'll prepare to send it to full council, right? All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
All right, and the next one is 2023-303.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, you needed to vote on that last one.
Did I not vote on it? Oh, I'm so sorry. All right. So, let's take a vote on it. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, ayes have it. Thank you. Now we can move on to the next one. All right. 2023-303, the Greater High Point Food Alliance update, and that's going to be done by Mr. Carl Veerling.
Yes. Mr. Veerling, the Executive Director for Greater High Point Food Alliance, will give an update on the current state of food insecurity, a report on the 2022 accomplishments of the Greater High Point Food Alliance, and report on current projects and activities. The Greater High Point Food Alliance has been actively engaged with many collaborative partners to improve food security throughout the Greater High Point area, Guilford County, and the state of North Carolina. And this report is a summary of those efforts along with the current state of food security in our area. Mr. Carl Veerling.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
It's good to see all of you again. You know, it's been about 13 months since I've been in this chamber, so it's been a while.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about what's going on. One of the questions I am asked on a regular basis is, what's the state of food insecurity in the Greater High Point area? I've got a board member ask that question every month. On a scale of 1 to 5, we're about 2.5 right now. things are difficult for a lot of our community. So I'm going to share some numbers with you, give you an idea. In 2021, the Guilford County food insecurity rate was 11%. High Point was 17%. Year to date, for the first 4 months of this year, Second Harvest Food Bank has seen a 62% increase in the number of households served, an 87% increase in the number of individuals served year over year. We've got food pantries right now that are seeing twice what they were seeing during COVID. It's the highest numbers that some of them have ever seen in their history. To give you an idea, right now, Senior Resources of Guilford, the Meals on Wheels program, has over 400 people on their waiting list. We're seeing more immigrant folks that are coming in for assistance. We're seeing more seniors than we've seen in the past. So it's continued to be a real increase. At the same time, the challenge is the food pantries don't have as much food as they did this time last year. It's because of changes with TFAP, which is the largest federal program, and the USDA. Donations are down, store collections are down. At the same time, we've got this tremendous need. So just want to make sure you're aware of that. We've got a lot of food pantries who are actually going out and buying meat because there's not meat available through Second Harvest Food Bank. This is not a food bank issue. I want to emphasize this is a USDA issue. And some of the things that we have seen with supply chains, global economies, all that is really beginning to affect local communities. So that's where we are right now as far as the state of food insecurity. We have some real concerns. We're hoping it'll get better. We're really trying to get people to do more. But we all know what the cost of inflation's done to our pocketbooks, and people are seeing it. So, but that is where we are as a community right now. The next thing, just want to share a little bit about some of our accomplishments. We received $50,000 in 2021 from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. And we used that money in High Point. The very first program is a Power Produce, which is a program at the farmers market for children, where they get tokens, where they can actually get $3 worth of tokens to buy local food. To give you an idea, we received $50,000. We gave $6,000 to that program. We actually applied for a grant. We got another $1,200 for that program through a separate grant. Now there's a private donor who is now supporting the Power Produce. Since we kicked this program off, there are now 225 children going through the program or have signed up for the program. That's a huge win. The senior produce boxes, we purchased $5,000 worth of fresh produce through Growing High Point last year to get into the hands of seniors. Our seniors are really at a critical point. If I'm doing presentations and advocacy, I would tell anybody that we're about to have a train wreck. And I had a law professor in grad school who always said, if you're going to have a train wreck, you better plan it. We're on the verge with our seniors. We also purchased $10,500 worth of formula for Baby Basics at the YWCA. I want you to think about when we got this money and what was happening with baby formula. There was a real shortage. And so that served over 288 families with that one program. And finally, we've been buying plastic bags for food pantries. You wouldn't think that's a big deal, but they don't have in their budgets to be buying plastic bags and other supplies. So we've been working hard to get them the supplies they need. We also developed in-house a program called Growing Towards Leadership, which is a leadership development program for local food pantries, others working in the food provider space. We've learned that a lot of folks don't have access to leadership training, so we've developed our own classes. We do a series of 6. We've had over 20 attendees to go through that so far. And we've been doing more and more work on research, policy, and especially advocacy. There was an issue a few years ago that nonprofits could not recover food from local schools, so it was going to waste. So myself and Laura Oxner, we began a conversation with Guilford County Public Health, and that didn't go very far at all. So I started reaching out to the contacts I have across the state, and we started this whole movement. And we were able to secure $60,000 in funding from the North Carolina legislature that will allow Dr. Ben Chapman at NC State to actually develop standard operating procedures for food recovery across the state of North Carolina. As we were working on this project, we learned that all 100 counties had a different interpretation of food recovery. I'm a manufacturing guy by heart. There's no standardization. We now have it standardized. We're going to be able to recover millions of dollars of food and meet a real need in our communities. That's just one piece of advocacy that took place through the Food Alliance. We did our 2022 Food Security Summit. A lot of you participated in that. We had over 180 participants. It was extremely well attended. For an online program, it went extremely well. There were not any hitches. I would say it's better than some done at the national level, to be honest with you. So, and we also finalized our strategic plan. So we're in year 1 of that right now. And finally, we have invested over $220,000 in local nonprofits through the Food Security Fund. When that program first got started, I thought, this is crazy. We're raising money to give money away, and we're barely sustainable. But this program has now been adopted by Second Harvest Food Bank, will be utilized across 18 counties. It's also been adopted in Michigan by the Food Bank in Michigan that I met with in 2019. So that's just a little bit. I've got a summary of accomplishments. That doesn't include all the work that's been done by the neighborhoods, by the work teams. This is just a snippet of what we did during 2022. So any questions about that?
I have 2 questions, but, yeah, I can go ahead. But you say seniors are at a tipping point.
Yes.
What do we do to help counteract that balance?
I think one thing, anything that we can do around affordable housing is a real plus for them. The number of seniors that are being displaced today because of rising rents, it's a real issue. I think that's one thing. I think continuing to make resources available, make them aware of what's taking place. I got a phone call today from a former school social worker who was working with a family that she used to know when she was still actively employed, who was living in a hotel room with kids. They can't afford their rent. So I worked with them to get the food they needed. That's a common phone call anymore. So, but anything that we can do around senior-friendly policies, that we can really look at senior housing, I think we continue to see what we can do to get grocery stores and other places close to seniors. I mean, we all understand the difficulty of transportation, and that's an issue for a lot of our seniors. I'm getting more phone calls about seniors being homebound. So that's a real challenge. I actually did a presentation to the Governor's Advisory Council on Seniors on Aging several weeks ago to talk about policy recommendations to the state of North Carolina. And we need to be having more and more of these conversations. But Wesley, it needs to be within the community we can find the solutions. We have ideas, but we need to take advantage of the folks when they're at the Kohler Center. When the new senior center is being built, that would be a wonderful opportunity to put in a food pantry. And that had been a conversation that I had with the prior administration. You know, when you build a new senior center, let's put a food pantry in there, because it's all about access. We're also working with the hospital right now on a project to get food available to patients being discharged. That's another big issue, but it's about access. And there's only so much the city can do. But if we can continue to advocate for them and continue to raise awareness.
Okay. You also say the food pantries are running low.
Yes.
Is it more beneficial for them to get cash donations or food donations?
Right now, either one would be very helpful. It's the first time, I've been around this topic since 1990 as a volunteer and other things. First time I've ever known food pantries not to have enough green beans and corn. That says something. They don't have a lot of cereal that they need, you know, breakfast items. Yeah. So anything that we can do, whether it's a food drive or cash donations, they could use both. And I would also suggest that people really think about smaller food pantries that are serving niche populations, like Burns Hill is an excellent example. They do amazing work. But there are other food pantries out there that are not one of the big ones. They still do good work, and I think we need to remember them.
Have we, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, this is Chris Williams. Have we, during or after post-COVID, have we lost food pantries? I know one that we did, but just that one so far?
That's the only one I know of, Mr. Williams. That's it.
Which food pantry is that, just for the sake of knowing?
Word of reconciliation. It's,
I'm Brentwood.
Sincerely Agape.
Sincerely Agape.
Okay.
Yep.
Carl, thank you for being here. This is Councilman Jefferson. You mentioned the $60K that's being put towards development of standard operating procedures for food recovery. I think that's an incredible solution that can hopefully leverage some good insight and leverage right now what seems to be a wasted resource. I'm curious, is there any data out there that lets us know how much food is being wasted and if this sort of thing is enacted? I heard you say millions, and so I guess in pounds of food, or did you say millions of dollars worth of food? What is there a way to put us in the ballpark of what's being wasted? And if we could do this, how much would be recovered?
Just to give you an idea, Councilman Jefferson, when we looked at the data as the schools, Department of Public Instruction shut down food recovery, we were estimating just for Guilford County schools that 90 tons of food was being thrown away.
On a weekly basis or monthly
Annual
basis?
basis.
Annual basis, okay.
Annual basis. And so a lot of that goes into our local landfills, which is using precious space. It's also the environmental impact. And so one of the things that you see are USDA policies. One of the very best things I've ever done is to work in the cafeteria at Fairview one day. And that gave me the opportunity to see the policies that are being enacted by the USDA. So if you have breakfast in the classroom, they're not allowed to bring anything that's left over back into the cafeteria. It has to be thrown away. So today, as part of the advocacy work we're doing, I'm serving on Johns Hopkins Sustainable Community Food Policy Council. It's a national group, about 25 of us, and we're advocating for those kinds of changes. So, but anything we can do to recover food. Remember when the governor shut down the state of North Carolina for COVID? The amount of food that was thrown away?
Yeah.
All right, these policies, if they had been in place, would have been a great resource for our local communities. So, but as they've done the work across the state, it will result in millions of dollars. I am sure of that. So.
Thank you for that. This may seem like a question that we should just know, and at this point, given the issues we've had in our community, I'm surprised we don't talk about it more, but can you remind us where High Point was, I guess back in it might have been 2014 or 15, and where we are now in terms of our
2015.
rank for food insecurity and food hardship?
Okay, and food hardship, which is having enough money to buy the groceries that's needed for you and your family. In March of 2015, we were number one in the United States, the Greensboro High Point MSA. The food insecurity rate for the High Point area at that time was around 23%. And today, the last study was done by the Food Research Action Center. We're number 14 in the nation as an MSA. More importantly, the food insecurity rate for the greater High Point area was down to 17%. That's a 7-point difference over that period of time. I don't know if folks understand how significant that is. But we have been able to bring in millions of dollars worth of resources into the community. More food pantries, more food, more programs. There's more going on. And so, but there's still work to be done. There will always be work to be done. But I think we have to be very cognizant of what are the biggest topics people are facing, what are the big issues. We did a study, I know I need to hurry up, but we did a study in the Highland Mills area prior to COVID, just prior to COVID. Half of the seniors in that neighborhood were choosing between food and medicine.
Yeah.
Half of them were having to make a difficult choice. And so if they're not taking their medication or if they're not eating properly, that's impacting the healthcare system. And there are real dollars involved with that. I did some back of the envelope math for a presentation. Just for our community alone, it's probably $80 to $90 million that's costing the healthcare system. We all end up paying for that at the end of the day. For North Carolina, it's going to be over $5 billion. Those are very, very conservative numbers. Again, it's based on a national study, broke out the demographics for our area, but that's where we are. And we couldn't have made the progress, to be honest with you, if it wasn't for the support of the City Council in the city of High Point. We are always lifting this city up as an example of what can happen in North Carolina. There's no other organization in the state like the Greater High Point Food Alliance. And if it hadn't been for the support of some of the folks in here, we wouldn't be here today.
Yeah. Carl, can I lean in on something you shared?
Sure.
So we went from number one in food hardship in March 2015 to number 14.
Yes.
That number 14 is as of what date?
That's as of 2017.
As of 2017, we were number 14?
Yeah.
And do you know if the next time there will be some kind of study on food hardship that we'd be able to know the ranking?
we're waiting. I'm not sure if they have to get funding for that. That's a big project.
Yeah.
It's a big project. But I will tell you that the food insecurity number, which is something we do have impact over, that is a recent number, and that was 2021. So that's
Okay.
a 7-point drop.
You said it was from 23 to 17 or 24 to 17?
So it was, for the food insecurity,
Yeah, from 23% to 17%?
17%.
So 23 to 17?
Yep,
Okay. As of 2021?
yeah.
Okay. Thank you also, Councilman Hudson asked a very poignant question regarding what can the city do to support, and it sounds like you gave us both options to look at in the short term as well as in the long term. In the short term, and what seems to be somewhat of low-hanging fruit, and I'd be curious to know how the conversations are going, and if you're having those conversations with our Parks and Rec team regarding the food pantry at the senior center. Can you expound on that a little bit more? Have you had the chance to reach out to them?
We had that conversation a few years ago, and as you guys get closer to breaking ground, I guarantee you, we'll bring it up again.
We're still talking about it.
Yeah.
It's still on the table.
So, but that's something, anything that we can do to get food closer to the community, we're better off.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the trigger point on that is. Like who makes the decision, and about what timeline do we make that decision? Is it in pre-construction, and is it a committee that votes on that? I'm curious, because at this point, to sort of just wait until groundbreaking to bring it back up, I don't know if that gives us enough accountability on that. It just seems like a low-hanging fruit that we can make a decision on. And Chairman, I'm sorry to go and belabor on this point, but I'd love to know that we have some action item after here that allows us to know who's carrying the water on this conversation. Is it, you are? Okay, you've got it, okay.
Yes, Lee, Tillery, and I have talked about this, and it's either, the goal is either to put it in the new senior center, or when we get, if the senior center allows us to free up some space in Oakview,
And Oakview Rec.
so we can actually put it in the rec center.
So right now, there is a plan to do it, we just got to figure out how we're doing it.
Yep.
Okay, and if that plan changes, we can reconvene on that. Okay,
It's
awesome.
good to know that the conversations are being had.
So to be clear, it's not if, but an either or.
Yeah, it's like how at this point. It's not if, but how.
How, okay.
That's what it sounds like you're saying.
That's what I hope.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I was just talking about placement, whether in the center or in the,
Yeah.
okay.
In municipal government, you never say yes. You say, yes, that's the plan for the moment, but it's not, nothing's written in stone, but yes, that's the conversation.
Except-
Create something. So-
Yeah, I would just love to know if at some point the conversation takes a turn that it comes back for this group to talk about. And I guess wondering who's going to be following and tracking that, so that way when it does happen, we can talk about it. Because I'd hate to know the conversation was being had, and may sound like a silly example, but I don't want it to be that, well, we had to choose between that and, I don't know, some room that's going to get used for some purpose, right? And we could have had a debate about whether you should use it for this purpose or that purpose. I'd love to know that discussion is being had. That's just, again, this senior center, we're placing it at a place that already folks have questioned, will it create some disparity in terms of access? We've had folks question that already. And the point that we keep making is that if we put it right in Oakview, and I agree, that actually is kind of in the center of where our population is because we have so much growth in the north part of town. So that I can live with, and then we can increase transportation to the center. But if we're going to invest all that and then invest in getting so many folks there, to me, I would have to say, unless there's a really, really, really great reason not to do it, it should be a 100% that we are doing it. And that's kind of where I stand on that. And I'm one of 9. So that's why I'd love to know that if there's a reason why we're not doing it, that it could come back up for us to talk about it so we can make an official hard decision. Because at this point, I think if it's debatable, we need to push it over the lump so it's no longer debatable.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, good afternoon. Damon Duquesne, Assistant City Manager. So to Councilmember Jefferson's point, and actually to the whole entire committee, is we're in the very infancy of the design and, elements that will be included in the senior center. So we'll absolutely include that in there, and we can bring it back to any committee or the full council, for approval and all that good stuff. But we have the whole public input process to go through. So we would invite and make sure that our that our friends come out and reinforce that. But basically what we heard is that we've heard the council loud and clear, and staff will make sure that that element is included moving forward.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And to the not so low hanging fruit, the affordable housing piece, that is one that is going to take a Herculean effort to keep working on. But I know there are developers who, from what I know, whenever they come to talk to us, one of the things they bring up is that they want to ensure that their property can address food insecurity and food hardship. If I'm not mistaken, I think Winfield Properties, something that they're looking at here, is going to look at doing some of that. Not to give them only a shout out, I'm pretty sure other developers are talking about it, but I think if we can keep being pointed in that way, and I know that's something that Ms. Wilson's department focuses on too, we can keep leading it in on that.
Great.
Okay.
Anybody else?
You want to mention the food summit?
I've got our 2023 projects real quick for you.
All right.
All right?
As long as you're not finished, I won't let you go.
No, I've got a little bit more for you, not much. So we made a commitment to launch the Greater Guilford Food Finder app, which is really an expansion of the app that we already had in place. We worked with partners across Guilford County to identify sites. There has never been one central location for the identification of resources throughout Guilford County, and we took on that role. And so we launched the app in April. Since April, there's been 612 new downloads. That doesn't include everybody who already had the app and then was using the app. So it's a totally different look. It's got all the resources broken out by city, by type. So we think it's a really great resource for the whole county, and we're seeing a lot of activity with it. So that's a new initiative of the Food Alliance. We also have, which I'll share with you, the very first community resource guide for all the Guilford County and the greater High Point area. Again, this was not being done for all of Guilford County. There's a lot of staff time that goes into identifying the resources, making sure they want to be published, verifying all the information. You can imagine what that's like. And so, but we now have something written that we're getting across the county. We also have worked with Atrium Wake Forest Baptist High Point Medical Center and the Foundation for a Healthy High Point in securing a grant to form what we call the Healthy Guilford Coalition. This is a big project. And involves Atrium, Wake Forest, and High Point, the Health Department, Moses Cone Hospital, Moses Cone Foundation, the Foundation for Healthy High Point, the Greater High Point Food Alliance, and a group of 30 others that signed on as we were putting the original grant together. This will be a countywide initiative. We're applying for the second phase of the grant now, but this will be a countywide initiative on physical activity and nutrition. It's really exciting to see Moses Cone and High Point Regional working together. This is the first project that's actually doing that. We have been working really hard through the administrative stuff. Whitney Davis, myself, and Leanne Venable with the Hospital Foundation are really the ones leading this project right now. So we're also working very closely with Cooperative Extension. I can't tell you how exciting it is to see hospital systems working together.
Yes.
The next thing is that we are working on, or we worked with the Cooperative Extension Office to secure funding for the very first Guilford County Food Security Coordinator. Guilford County Commissioners committed funding to create this position. We worked with a number of agencies and with Heather Schaefer at the Cooperative Extension to get that done. Again, this is a really big deal because people are working together across Guilford County. One of the things that folks don't think about, they think about food insecurity in the urban areas, but there are food insecure people in Oak Ridge and Brown Summit and some of these smaller municipalities. And so, and again, another countywide effort. There's also a Guilford County Food Security Task Force that we will play a large role in. Again, it's developing a plan for Guilford County. They're growing towards leadership. We are launching another class. And finally, we will be doing our next food summit on September 13th at the factory at Condon Yards. The focus of this food summit will be on creating a just and sustainable food system. You could have a month-long conference on this. It's a huge topic, but it's one that we think is very important, so we're going to squelch it into one day and just catch just a snippet of information. But one of the things that we need to have is a good, strong food system, and it's something that's weak right now. So that's just some, that's not all that we're doing, that's just some. And I would always remind everybody that Rebecca Dobbins and myself were the two staff people. We have a part-time administrative person right now, but just two of us. And a lot of this work is being done by volunteers on these work teams, an awful lot of it. So, but I really appreciate the opportunity. Let me give you some information. I'll make sure that Sandra gets it as well. So anybody have any other questions for me?
Any other questions?
No, I don't. We'll talk offline.
We'll talk. All right.
But just, I mean, I just for a little sake of history, you know, how long has the Food Alliance been in existence?
We've officially formed in 2015.
Okay, so that's like the first year of my tenure, so, but just appreciate where they have, in my opinion, single-handedly partnered everybody to have all these different accomplishments over this whole time period. You know, I said it many times, it's just specific agencies that have some of the biggest impact, and he's real modest about it, but he knows he's had impact on a national level versus as well as local. So, but just a big thank you,
Thank you.
from me and the people up here that serve. So thank you.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely, and that 6% that you talk about, percentages don't mean much until you realize that that's about 7,000 people in High Point. That their lives are better because of this program.
I will tell you that there was a program that Guilford County Schools tried to do away with a few years ago that we took a stand on, that they decided to keep it, that they're now expanding. And so it's, there are thousands of kids that have been impacted. And so that's the exciting thing. It really is.
Yes.
Thank you for the work you do.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. On the 2023 Food Security Summit, what time is that?
It'll start at 9 o'clock, and we will be sending information out, stating the date to this council. And
Okay.
so we'll make sure that you guys get it. However, registration is limited. So I encourage you to be on time and prompt with that.
Because registration's not open for it yet, is it?
Do I now?
It's not open yet, is it?
Not yet, no.
Okay, great. Thank you, and thank you again for all the work that you do. Definitely, we appreciate it. We good? All right, the next one is 2023-304, the Community and School Garden Update will be presented by Ms. Crystal, is it Mercer?
Yes,
That's all
Crystal
right.
Mercer.
Okay,
You did
I
good.
got it.
Thank you so much for having me this evening. I'm Crystal Mercer, Community and School Gardens Agent for the North Carolina Cooperative Extension. I've been here several times, but it's always a pleasure coming to report what I'm doing for the community and how we're all working together. And I also want to thank you so much for paying 1/3 of my salary. And I cannot tell you how this position has changed my life, and I hope it has changed others as well. If anybody asks you about how many community and community gardens and school gardens you have in High Point, you have 50. And you're adding several a year. And my focus is sustainability. So I'm not just going to say, oh, somebody says, okay, I want a community garden. No, we're going to sit down and talk about it. We're going to see your site. We're going to find out if you have any leadership. You can't do this by yourself. Some people want to be Lone Rangers, and it's just not going to work. But we'll sit down and talk through it. But you have 50 community gardens in High Point. 7 are neighborhood gardens, 17 are the schools, 3 are youth gardens, 12 are community organizations, and 11 are urban agriculture. This is where you come in, and this is our Community Garden Assistance Program. These are the community gardens that received either free mulch, free compost, or soil to help them get their garden started this year. And I have several new organizations that Village Life Legacy Garden has started this year, and I cannot wait to show you where that soil went and the compost, okay? Now, also, this is the first time we've had a school to receive that grant as well, and that is Fairview Elementary. And I have images of what they've done as well. And I just want to also say that gardening, especially community gardening, there's many, many benefits. When you garden, you get a sense of closeness to nature. You most likely would eat what you grow. I guarantee you, everyone on this list would say, I'd rather grow my tomato than buy it, because it's going to taste much better. So, and you can share your produce and our fruits with your neighbors and friends in the community. So there's a lot of benefits. There's exercise. It's a lot of things. Now, support for new and existing gardens. This is the community grant, Community Garden Assistance Grant. There were 11 grants received. There was applications totaling $942.54. This is what the city of High Point spent, okay, between January and May. I didn't get any applications in June, so it's January through May. Here are the tons of wood mulch, topsoil, compost, and this leaf mulch and also. The fair market value is $2,208.80 cents. So the fair market value of, let's say, a ton of mulch is $17 a ton, and it's $22 for everything else. There's a savings, so what came out of the city was $942. There's a savings of $1,266.26. The new and restart gardens, High Point, there's Lori Chamberlain. She wants to start a community fruit garden. The Whole Earth Collective, Temple Memorial. There's a Vietnamese community. They would love to have a garden at the church. And when I went out to do a site visit, I went out with Sarah Barlow, who's our Vista volunteer with City of High Point. We wanted to know why you wanted, in this area, they had picked out an area. And the pastor said, when my members walk out of the church, I want them to look over and see what we're doing for this community, what they're doing. So what we're growing is for them and for others. But you know what, out of sight, out of mind, and he wanted to make sure they have something to see every time they walk out of their congregation. There's High Point. Greensboro, we're doing restarts, Dudley High School, Harrison Middle, Urban Mets Memorial Garden, Greensboro Moravian, and St. Philip's, AME Zion. Village Life Legacy Gardens. This is the product of the Community Garden Grant. It is also, it was help from the Greater High Point Food Alliance, the Food Security Funds, the young lady who is the leader, and they do have a team, a leadership team. The leader is Jocelyn Anderson. She drew up the design, purchased the wood, and her finished product is this. This style keeps out your groundhogs, your rabbits. So it's just secure, and it's very, very pleasant. So you got to see the next picture. That's what it's like today, and it's a little bit more today. So they're already growing. They're growing for the community. They're growing for their congregation. So they have got a big start.
Sorry, how tall are those beds?
Those beds, they look like they're about, I want to say at least 12 or 14 inches, I would say. Well, at least 4 feet, I would think.
Okay.
maybe up at the knee, I would think. Yeah.
Thank you.
And that was just from a design she came up with.
Yeah.
You know, the Master Gardener Volunteers of Guilford County, they also want to be a part of the community gardens. So there is a school garden micro grant that's given every year for $250. The picture up to your left, that is the committee. They go over applications. And then the picture to your right are the recipients of that award. 3 are schools in High Point: Fairview, Oak Hill, and High Point Friends. Hey, that's Fairview. They did a great job on squash. The picture down at the bottom is how it looked before they received any kind of help, and they got assistance through the Greater High Point Food Alliance Security Fund. They had some civic clubs to come in and help. They had the Boy Scouts. They did a remarkable job, and I wish I had a bigger picture, but you have to go out and just check it out sometime. But they have great leadership and buy-in from parents and from the instructors and teachers. Well, seeds. This is an annual event through the Extension Office. We give away free seeds to community and school gardens. This one was February the 11th at the High Point Library. The picture at the very top left, those are the volunteers who helped package the seeds. The seeds came in bulk bags. They had to weigh it. They had to put them in envelopes. It was over 200 High Point University students that helped with this project. We had over 80 people to walk through. This is, thank goodness, we were able to do in person this year. Last year it was drive-by. This year it was in person. And people had questions, and they lingered and talked about flowers and pollinators and their seeds, and there was some seeds there that they've never used before. So we had volunteers there to answer questions about, hey, how's this going to taste, when we grow it? So it was a wonderful event. But even though we had that many there, afterwards we still had people who could not make that event. So it was over 100 people that I served just for giving out seeds. Building partnerships, join a community garden. Not everyone really needs to start from scratch, start a garden, because there's opportunities in the city where there's, like for example, Burns Hill had beds that they had not given out for anyone to, start a garden. So this group, they call themselves social entrepreneurs, and a young lady that has her back to us. Her name is Alex, and they want to help the communities. They want to grow produce for food pantries. They are really willing to get in here and get dirty and just work to help us. Well, Mr. Mingo was there, and we all met for them to look at the site, and sure enough, they took on few beds, and they are growing produce today. There was a Greensboro, a day school service day, and they drove all the way to High Point to help with the Burns Hills weeding and mulching the walk path. And that's the teacher and the other picture, other photo, and those are the students. We talked about seniors, and we're seeing less participation from our adult population, a senior adult population. Gardening it's not hard. I mean, it's not easy. It's wear and tear on your legs, your back, And some people who love gardening just have to give it up. But there are many, many, many reasons why the seniors are having to back away from gardening. I have learned that some also stop cooking. They receive meals either through, somebody brings meals to them, or they usually do prepared meals. It's very seldom they do chop and cook and bake. They just really slow down and stop doing that. Well, there's still seniors who love to garden, but how do you do this, you know? So we came up with a way to bring the garden to the seniors, and it's called Gardens Under Glass. They love gardens. They were able to create their own world in this container, glass container. They, everything was, this was a workshop at the library. We had a full class. One senior even brought her granddaughter to help her design her own garden. And the containers were through West End Ministries thrift store. That's where the containers came from. So you don't have to, you know, go all out. They had beautiful, beautiful pieces there, and I could not resist going there to get those containers. Everything was provided. There was no fee. The rocks, the soil, the pebbles, the sand, the little seashells, they just came up with their own idea of how they want to put it together. And that is a great example. And I wanted to also read you a testimony from that class. A young lady, I call them young ladies, wrote, she sent an evaluation back. She said, I would definitely attend all your, she said, my purpose was to learn how to make a terrarium and have fun doing it. That was accomplished plus much more. Since then, I have gotten 3 succulent and terrarium books out of the library. I'm also learning about propagating my plants. Who could ask for anything more?
Yeah.
These are past events. Of course, there's people who are suffering with depression and just trying to just make it through life. So we offered a Coping with Seasons of Life, a mental health discussion. We had a counselor to come in. She did a Zoom presentation on how to cope with different things of that's happening in your life. And it was a live feed, so people were able to ask questions. Spring Sprout Spectaculars. That is that was the beginning of the spring. It's time to start planning our gardens, time to start thinking. And I got that out at the City of High Point Innate Learning Garden. Oh my gosh, it was well attended. People loved it, and I have a testimony for that one. I will definitely attend all your classes at the High Point Library. This was not my first. This is year 3 of my deck garden. I used to grow flowers and now grow mostly vegetables. I love this job. What we're doing pretty much is going on right now. We have a High Point Community Garden contest. Any of our community gardens, even if they're new, can sign up. We're going to have judges to go around, and we're going to look at curb appeal and how much produce they were able to produce and give out to the community. And why are we doing this? Number one, community awareness, community outreach. We want to showcase their gardens, engaging potential gardeners, and there's a feeling of pride and honor for the hard work. And, you know, someone, you know, very seldom you get people who's going to drive by and see your garden, but this way, somebody's got to go and judge your garden and got to see it. And it will be publicized as well. So this is what we're doing right now. Oops.
Thank you for your
Okay, I think that's it.
I think you forgot a bullet on the bottom of it, our goals.
I'm sorry.
Our goals, I think you forgot a bullet. It's,
Our
when it's
goals.
bragging rights.
That's true.
It means it, I'm telling you.
Okay, that's the end of my presentation.
Perfect. Any
Any
comments or questions? Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for all the work, hard work.
Sure,
We definitely appreciate it. Thank you so much.
thank you.
And I believe that's all we have. Any announcements? Meeting is adjourned then, right? Thank you.